Hi, this is Shira Rubinoff. I'm here with Bradford Rand, President and founder of the Cybersecurity Summit and Tech Expo. Bradford, pleasure to be with you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Certainly. So, Bradford, we talk a lot about in the industry about ransomware and ransomware attacks, and they've grown over 80% year over year. And by the next year in 2023, the damages are expected to exceed over $30 billion. We see that cybercrime has matured over the years, along with the advancement of technology, pretty much at the same speed, if not quicker. The scammers have been evolving their business models along with their attacks. So I'd like to ask you, what have you been hearing in the industry around the involvement of ransomware, and what types of proactive and reactive approaches are organizations taking to mitigate these risks?
Sure. Well, as the producer of many cybersecurity summits, we typically hear from government agencies such as the FBI, and their position has always been do not pay the ransomware. Now, that's a very difficult position for a company to be in, especially when they have millions of dollars at stake. A lot of these ransomware criminals have already taken your backups. They've already penetrated your business. So you really sometimes have nowhere to go. If you are held victim to that, immediately call the authorities, because the last thing you want is, if you are especially a publicly traded company or a high profile entity, you don't want to be seen as the company that's hiding the fact that they're a victim of ransomware. You want to exploit the fact that you are being victimized. You don't want to be the villain here. And a lot of companies in the past have covered up the fact that they had a major data breach, or that they fell victim to ransomware. So the best thing you can do if you are if held for cyber ransom is immediately call the FBI and all of the local authorities. And in terms of preventing a ransomware attack, I mean, you've got to have backups and backups for those backups, meaning, cyber criminals are extremely smart, and literally within a couple of weeks, there's always going to be another virus, another workaround. So you want to make sure even your backups are held in the highest value proposition, where you have backups for those. So this way, if you got that ransomware gun pointed to your head, you could rest assured that your business will still stay in place and healthy. But that being said, in terms of preventing, it is so incredibly difficult to prevent ransomware, and you can buy hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars of software and hardware. But the ransomware criminal typically every 2 weeks to a month will evolve around that solution. You can monitor your data going in and out through AI, but still all you need is someone in your company to click that quintessential link that they shouldn't have clicked on. And that really all comes down to training. There's been surveys done where they have tested even the C-suite, and they also more than 60% of the time fail when tested in terms of getting those mysterious emails. They just click on the link, downloads malware, and then your network is infected. So it is quite hard. Ransomware is not going anywhere, I guess, is my point. But you can mitigate the damage by doing backups of your backups, consistently monitoring and training your staff to make sure that they're not simply doing stupid things, because that's how more than 70% of the breaches happen. Is usually, they call it the human element. You're only as good as the weakest human link within your organization.
No, thank you for sharing that. And we've also seen that ransomware attacks have evolved to the point where they start deleting information. And that's,
Sure.
again, preying on the human weakness. And it all comes down to, as you put in the last point, you're only as strong as your weakest link, which is the human. So we talk about making the human part of the solution, not the problem, which, as you said, training is critical, having the proper cyber posture within the organization is critical, but making it not just a training day, but a way that an organization actually functions. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and also trust, do not trust, zero trust and verify, meaning if I got an email from you, but your email looked a little off by a letter or two, right? I need to call you up on the phone and say, Shira, did you just send me an email? And you'll probably say no. All right, because there's a request for a wire transfer of $20,000. I just wanted to make sure that you're the right recipient. I've been almost victimized. Thank God my staff has caught it, where even internally, they've said, Brad, we've got these gift cards that you ordered from Target for our clients. You sure you want to order 2,000 of them? I'm like, no. And then please click on the email and they'll see it's not from Bradford, but it's from Barney. But the alias actually does say your name. So you've got to really double check and consistently, and it doesn't hurt to make a quick phone call and verify, hey, did you want this wire transfer done? Did you want this bill paid? Did you want these gift cards ordered? If chances are it's going to be fraud, it's going to be some type of a scam. And you've just got to be vigilant and diligent and well-trained and always verify. Always verify.
That's a very important point that you just raised in terms of picking up the phone and making a call. A lot of these incidents happen when a phone call comes in or an email with the urgency that somebody at the other end is playing on the human emotions. I got to get this done now. My CISO is getting on an airplane. Somebody's going to pull out all the money from my account. If I don't transfer, the deal won't go through. So when it's played on the human emotion, people act and think second. So that is a critical element you just highlighted. And yes, verify, pick up the phone. It might seem old school instead of a text. There could always be man in the middle, but make sure you hear it from the voice, the right person, and verify always. So thank you again for that very important point.
Yeah. And no deal will be lost in 3 or 4 hours if the president is on the quintessential flight going. So everyone is contactable, and that president will then thank you for being on the safe side, as opposed to wire transferring out millions of dollars to some unknown foreign entity. Exactly. And of course, in terms of reporting, if you do make that mistake, and if you do wire transfer, and banks are pretty smart these days, banks do have that follow-up automatically. Are you looking to wire transfer these funds? Banks are much better than what they used to be. But the faster you tell law enforcement, the greater chance you have of recovering your funds. Within 24 hours, I believe it's over 85%. Don't quote me on this. I would just look at the FBI website. And then 48 hours, it's less. 72 hours, if your money is out of your bank account and somewhere outside the country, very little chance of recovering it. Very, very hard to get that. But within 24 hours, amazing chance for them to just pull back that wire transfer. And I think that's kind of a fail-safe these days. I think it's automatic because so many banks, so many businesses have been burned. They know, all right, we're going to wire transfer this money, but they have that ability to claw back, as they say, that wire transfer if there is fraud. So anyone who is or falls victim to a cyber crime, time, it's like the 0 day. It's down to minutes. Your network's been infiltrated, a wire transfer has been consummated, then you realize it was crime. Just get on the phone and get on it. The worst enemy you have is actually, after the cyber criminal, is time. The more you wait, the chances of recovering your funds just lessen by the hour.
Exactly. And on the flip side, we're all working at warp speed. Everybody's multitasking, and that's where a lot of these problems happen. So as you say, time could work against you, it could work for you if you stop and pause. But also the point that you're saying about reporting is critical, and that boils down to, again, the human element piece, where organizations really need to understand that they have to have the proper type of relationships with their employees, that the communication is a 360, that you check in, and to know that to report something, good, bad, or the other, is a positive thing. And don't be afraid to have those conversations and get to know your employees in order to make them part of these solutions of not having problems within organizations.
And to that point, sorry to interrupt, but in terms of communication, if you are a publicly traded company, if you are a high profile, privately held company, and if you fall victim and the data that you've lost or has been compromised is of hundreds of thousands of people, it's better for you to get in front of the problem. It's better to get in front of the media, because you do not want the press to turn against you.
Exactly.
Back in the day, whether it was Home Depot or Target or Yahoo, it was one of those major breaches where they kind of didn't tell the public yet. But had they told the public, and don't quote me on which one of those companies it was, but had they told the public first, hey, we were victimized. We were the victim here. A cyber criminal came in, took your data and has bought it and has distributed it on the dark web, whatever, as opposed to XYZ company hiding the fact that they've lost your data. And then it comes out that, oh, it's been reported that, that company got breached and they didn't tell anyone about it. That can be your worst nightmare. If you are the victim, just, I don't say play the victim, but just let everyone know that you were victimized, because chances are most everyone, whether you have a business or just personally, is going to be the victim of some type of cyber crime. No matter who you are, no matter what size business you have, you're a target,
And that leads to the trust factor as well. And segueing perfectly into incident response, that's something that we're all dealing with, all these organizations, certainly when you're talking about ransomware, when you talk about the different threats and attacks that we're having from cyber criminals. An incident response covers many facets, from seeking vulnerabilities in code and network, hosts and other types of infrastructures, and researching threat actors and their tactics, techniques, and procedures, to reviewing threat intelligence and industry news, to just name a few of these types of ways to go about this. What have you been seeing in the industry regarding incident response, and how do you feel the industry is doing? Because there's a lot of different opinions around that, and some companies are certainly doing better than others. Who do you see, if you want to name some companies or just in general different sectors? Can you share that with our audience, please?
Yeah, well, what I could certainly share is join. If you are in charge of your critical infrastructure for your particular company, if you're the IT director, if you're the CTO, CIO, or CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, you probably are part of one of the organizations like Infraguard, which is the public-private partnership between industry and the FBI. They have constant reports of what's going on in the cyber world, meaning the latest threats, the latest trends. There's meetup groups within Infraguard, and they have their own meetings where you can get deeply educated on what's going on, especially if you're a cybersecurity professional. You want to know what's coming down the pipeline in terms of the latest viruses. And of course, what are the latest solutions? And additionally, being part of Infraguard, you've got that direct tie-in with the FBI. So the minute you're breached, the moment you have probably a field officer of your region, and you can report the incident, and hopefully they can start helping you recover your data and solve the crime, and maybe even hopefully catch those criminals. So incident response, I mean, from what's been said, most privately held companies and even some public companies, they don't practice it enough. They don't have a plan in place. Some companies are great at it, and most companies, I think, are not. And you don't really want to plan for an earthquake or a fire, but the better you plan for that, the better chances of recovery and surviving. It's the same thing with cybersecurity. If you've got an incident response plan where all right, we've gotten breached, what do we do now? Right? We call the FBI. We cut off, we cut off any kind of information going in and out of the company. We notify certain people within the organization as to what to do next. And then, of course, the incident response also is, how do we recover our data? There's so many resources on the internet on how to create a proper incident response plan, and it's necessary. We used to have those fire drills, right, in school. We all had the fire drills. And around countries, they have, drills if there's, a bomb warning, So the faster and the more educated and more experienced in each organization is with regards to incident, the less possible damage. It could be tremendous damage, or it could be very mitigated if you've got the right incident response plan.
No, those are very helpful tips. No, thank you for that. It's interesting. In the past, it used to be very focused on being very reactive in cybersecurity. Now it's more proactive, but they really go hand in hand. You have to have a proactive as well as a very tight reactive approach. So your tips are very helpful, and I hope our audience really understands what they need to do and what they have to do. And just as closing, I'd love to ask you, do you have any specific areas that you just want to share with our audience around cybersecurity, whether it being specific business tips or other?
Here's the simplest tips, and I am guilty of it as well. Constantly, whether it's every 3 months or every 6 months, religiously change your password. Make sure if you have a terminated employee, have that incident response plan ready, because your employees can be the most dangerous. They've got all of your passwords, they have all the codes, they know everything. So before terminating a high profile employee, make sure that you've got your finger on the button to cut them off of the VPN or your file server. Make sure all the passwords are ready to go, because you don't want to give a potential terminated employee any kind of idea that you're going to terminate them. And that there's a lot of cybercrime that comes out from disgruntled and very unhappy employees that are let go. They're like, well, I'm going to screw this company, and they're going to screw their own company, and they're going to wire money out. They're going to take data and sell it. Who knows what they can do. So changing your passwords. And I think the easiest thing, obviously, is when terminating, again, an employee that had access to your data or your financials or any type of proprietary information, prepare for that, and prepare for that well. And if it's a seriously high profile, maybe even get tips from the FBI or from some other agency and do your research before you make that move, because there's been way too many times when, and they say it, and you read it in the news, a past employee has caused, tremendous damage to a company that they felt that they shouldn't have been, that they were wrongfully terminated. So 2 little tips like that are free, right? And they're easy, and just, all right, that's it. Change your passwords and be prepared for when you terminate an employee that had access to everything. And then again, any employee typically these days has access to your social media passwords, to your bank accounts, because they've been working for you. They know your FedEx number, they know your UPS number, they know everything. So be careful.
Well, that's great advice. Certainly, as you mentioned, they call it insider threat, whether it's unintelligent ones they don't realize, or the malicious, the ones that you're describing. And you basically tell people not to use ABC123 as their password, correct?
Always. And that's what it is. I think I don't know what it was. Maybe it was an Iron Man, they said, what's your password? Password. No. What is your password? It's password.
You'd be surprised. I've seen it in industry many a time over, as people think no one will ever think I'm using that. But such a wonderful discussion, Bradford. Thank you very much for your time. And I'm sure our audience will gain a lot from your advice to them. So thank you.
You got it. My pleasure.